Hey, the Earl here, coming at you with another build for the Xterra build log. Today we're going to add a fishing rod holder and a propane tank to the roof rack. So what we're going to need to set this all up, going to go over the requirements here. A little bit of 1/2-inch bolt hardware. I got this size, but we're probably going to be cutting them back down so that they're a little bit longer. These are a little over 2 inches, or they're the 2-inch bolts, and we'll probably only need the 1-inch bolt. These are BBD 1/2-inch, or BDD 1/2-inch from Home Depot. I've got a whole bunch of them. With these guys, we're going to need some washers. One of them is going to fit onto the bracket with just a straight washer. The other one I'm going to clip down. Did that off camera for you all, but this is the part number for those washers if you're interested in knowing what they are. 1/2-inch by 1.5-inch Everbuilt. Next, just some random steel bar that I have laying around. We're going to use that to build some brackets out. If I can, I'm going to try and use the aluminum piece instead of the steel just to conserve on weight, but I'm just worried about rigidity of the entire structure, and I think the steel might work better. Some super strut to go along with that, and this one is the deep well this time, where the previous one was only half the thickness here. Super strut, we'll use these guys that have a little rubber tip on them. They just work a little bit better. Next, we're going to need some brackets. These are super strut brackets. Those will line up with your bolt that you have into place. You'll have 2 of those into place, connect in there. We'll be making some cuts in this guy to line it up right. And those will hook to the roof rack on the other side of those bars. And then through the super strut, we'll need some U-bolts here. These ones are just 1/2-inch U-bolts so it's a 1/2-inch by 4-inch by 6.5-inch. So the way that you read that is 1/2-inch diameter of the U-bolt by 4-inch, which is the gap between the two, by 6.5-inch, which is the length from here to the top, 6.5 inches. Okay, let's try that again, in frame. So this guy here, if we take a look at it on the layout here, you've got 4 inches end to end, 1/2 inch in thickness, 6 inches top to bottom. For the propane tank specifically, this guy is big boy, so it's not going to fit into frame too well, but this is a 5-pound propane tank. We've got brackets on it that go into place, bolt down, hold it in very tightly, and we'll go ahead and get this guy connected to the outside of the Xterra. We'll take a look at the fishing rod holder once we get out to the car, because that guy's a little too big to bring in here and show off. Also make sure to have some things like Loctite on hand, as well as just general tools and whatnot. And also, here is the part number for those 1/2-inch connector bits that will hold the super strut together. The propane tank. This puppy here is our 5-pound propane tank that we're going to hook to the roof rack with these brackets over here on the side. The plan of action is I'm going to cut off a piece of this super strut material down to just enough to go between the 2 brackets. We'll also cut another one, which is again just enough to go between the 2 brackets for this U-bolt material, and that will be hooking onto this big old pipe. Pipe is where we can put all of our fishing poles down inside of there and keep them nice and safe while driving, but not have them tickle in the back of your neck while you're driving down the road. So, a couple pointers to putting on a propane tank on a vehicle. Number one, and this one I've seen a lot of other videos where people are installing propane tanks. Nobody ever discusses this, but there is a proper orientation for the propane tank for it to be mounted on a vehicle for transport. This particular one, the valve is on the top. It must be connected to the vehicle with that valve facing upright. If you connect it sideways like this, it is illegal to transport. So make sure that when you're connecting them, you check the orientation specifications for the particular container that you have. I don't know the exact specifics, but I will put a link in the description on the proper transportation of propane, but I do know for a fact that 1 5-pound bottle in the upright orientation for this bottle is legal to mount to a vehicle. Also, a quick size comparison. This is our 5-pound bottle, and this is the standard 20-pound bottle that goes on a barbecue grill. So huge space saver, but still, but it's a huge space saver because it's still very small, but it is still a greater capacity than the 1-gallon propane bottles. So you may have seen another video where I went on an angry rant recently about a StanSport cable to connect to a propane bottle. I went ahead and I got the Coleman brand because it came back into stock. I still have not heard anything back from the StanSport customer support. They pulled the product from Amazon and are refusing to talk to me about anything whatsoever. So I highly doubt that I'll ever hear anything back from them, but Coleman, this one works great. Thank you very much. Connects up, no problems, no leaks, and I don't have to worry about burning things down. But yeah, so let's get to some cutting. We'll pretty much time lapse the rest of this one out and cue the music. Alrighty, I have no idea where I got to on that because my memory card filled up, so we're just going to shoot that all again. Anyways, we've got all kinds of bolts and nuts and stuff that we're going to use to connect that bracket up to the propane tank over here. I've got one of them set up here already, or I've got both of them set up on here already, but one of the side brackets here ready to go. But as you can see, I've got these are called a carriage nut. So this is a 5/16 carriage nut. They are smooth on the top, and the idea behind that is I don't want anything sharp pointing towards the propane tank. I want it nice and smooth on the backside. But to do so, I've got this 3/8" nut here that fits around that shoulder on the carriage nut, and I put 2 of those on each so it'll sit flush. Otherwise it would be standing off and it wouldn't be a solid connection point on there. So I've got the 4 carriage nuts going through the holes, and then the bracket, got all the pieces cleaned up and ready to go. We put one bracket on the vertical, the other bracket across the horizontal. But before we do that, this is a hex head 5/16 nut with a 5/16 washer that we want to put through the backside because it's going to be pushing right up against the back of that guy. And we'll put one of those on each side there. And those pieces will be used to connect it to the super strut once we have it all going. And while everything's loose, it's going to be falling all over the place, so try to avoid vibration. One at a time. Anyways, next step is another 5/16" washer on each one of these puppies, and then a lock nut, or lock washer, and then a nut. And that will hold it on nice and tight, and it's not going anywhere. So again, 5/16, lock washer, and a nut. There we go, and getting nice and tight now. And let's do the bottom. Okay, here is an example of what we're putting together next. This is going to be for the fishing rod holder. You can see we've got our 4" U-bolt connected on there, holding rigid. The tube will be clamped in through that. This guy will be out a little bit further. That's just in there a little too tight right now. But we've got our connector bolt. This is going to connect to the roof rack. And let's just assemble these guys real quick. One of them will be for the propane tank, and 2 of them for the fishing rod holder. And to save myself some time, I went ahead and got some some inch-long 1/2" bolts, so that I don't have to cut down those 2" guys, but those are also castle nuts. Whoops. Those won't work, so it looks like I'm back to cutting. Alrighty, so when I said earlier buy long and cut them down, we're going to need 10 of them that are this length. 12 total, but 10 we're going to have to cut down. What we got here is some masking tape taped off. I'm going to cut on the line between the 2 pieces there, and it's time to cut off wheel.
Thank you.
So one thing you want to do after you get that all cleaned off is run it through a 1/2 inch nut just to clean any of the threads out. See, it's kind of sticking a little bit right there. So once we get it on there, run it through, clears those threads up, then you're good to go and you're not going to catch again. So now I just got to do that 11 more times. Okay, so now that we've got that bracket on there nice and tight and lined up, we're going to grab one of these guys and place her on. We wanted it on the bottom too, like that. We're going to place a larger washer and then our smaller washer, a lock washer, and then our nut. And tighten that puppy on there. Line that guy up. Line that guy up. There we go. Right here, we're going to get a close-up of how this puppy all goes together. So I'm taking a look here. I may need to actually trim this bolt down a little bit for it to fit in here, but I'm going to do that off camera here in just a second. But the way that we need to do this is that we have the pad on the back. We have one of our 1/2 inch washers. We're going to put a lock washer, then our 1/2 inch bolt on there. Thread it down tight, both top and on the bottom, and that'll hold in nice and tight up against the car, and it'll go in a little bit tighter once we get it all the way threaded on there. But you get that in place, and then we mount this guy to the roof rack. So I'll cut that off camera, come back to you when we're putting it on the roof.